Okay, as you'd expect here in the archives of the Central Armed Forces Museum, they would have some rare Nazi small arms. And because World War II German small arms had such an impact on what was developed later after the war, I wanted to highlight a few that I've seen that are extremely rare. First up, MKB 42W. Now this was Walther's attempt to field an assault rifle, and it ultimately failed. As far as I know, only 200 of these were made, and there's a few in the United States, but nevertheless, very, very rare gun. It has a unique locking mechanism, and on top of that, a very unique gas mechanism up here, a ring that surrounds the barrel, and gas pushes it back and cycles the action. The gun failed in field trials and ultimately was never adopted. But what's interesting to me, when you look at this gun, it would look space age even by today's standards, 2013, let alone 1942 when it was initially brought to service for field trials. Very cool gun and extremely rare. Now, the other two guns would certainly consider to be almost last-ditch guns. First one is, I want to point out the MP3008. It's essentially the late war German effort to make a Sten gun, more or less for their Volkssturm. Interestingly enough, it uses an MP40 magazine. And you can see very much a copy of the Sten, with the exception of they put the magazine on the bottom instead of through the side. What else is interesting is the Brits, in their time of need, came up with the Sten gun, which is more or less a crude copy of the German MP40. Fast forward to late 1944, early 1945, and the Germans have done exactly the same thing, role reversal. They came up with their crude copy of the Sten. Very interesting turn of events. Also, this is a prototype for a competitor to the STG 45. That was meant to be a Sturmgewehr replacement fielded in 1945 per se. This is the Grossfuss Horn Sturmgewehr. It uses a delayed gas blowback action. As far as we know, there's only 2.5 in existence, and the Russians captured them all. As you can see, it uses a Sturmgewehr magazine. Interesting trigger guard placement in terms of the whole hand, like you see on the Steyr AUG. Very cool gun, extremely rare. Unknown in the United States other than pictures. Okay, in the archives of the Central Armed Forces Museum in Moscow, we got a chance to get our hands on two very rare German assault rifles. One was the MKB 42W, Walther's entry into the German assault rifle trials. The other one was the Grossfuss Horn Sturmgewehr, which is a gas delayed blowback design to replace the Sturmgewehr. Now, this is the original Mac Daddy right here. This is the Sturmgewehr. This is ultimately the gun that the German army fielded in large numbers as the original assault rifle. Technically, it's not the first assault rifle that ever saw use. The Russians had that distinction, but we kind of see it as the grandfather of all modern assault rifles like the M16, M4, AK-47, take your pick. Now what we have over here is a true moon rock. This is an STG 45M, a Mauser design, a late war competitor into the trials to replace the Sturmgewehr. Now technically, this would be going head-to-head against designs like the Grossfuss Horn. Ultimately, it was selected to replace the Sturmgewehr, but the war came to a close and only 30 part sets were known to be made. This happens to be a part set that was completed into a gun, is on loan from a good friend of mine. It's roller locked, and it's considered to be the missing link between the Sturmgewehr and the later German Army G3. Extremely rare gun, the same caliber as the Sturmgewehr, and also takes the same magazine. Now you'll notice it has a shorter magazine than the Sturmgewehr magazine. One of the complaints from the field is that this particular weapon in the prone had too high of a profile, so the Germans were looking to shorten it so soldiers could get lower to the ground. Overall, extremely rare, really cool firearm seen for the first time on television here on TAC TV.